So in-ear monitors are becoming pretty cheap to the point where you can literally just throw them in with your Amazon order because it's like $5 and they might suck, but they're $5, so maybe you don't care that much if they suck or not. So I bought a bunch of cheap ones and I bought some more mid-range. I would call the upper middle range of the budget IEMs. The highest on the list is $115 before shipping, and the lowest is a whopping $3. For the price of like a cheeseburger, you can have a set of in-ear monitors. Are they good? I have no clue. Actually, I do know. I've known for a long time. I've had them for a few days, and I've been listening to them a lot. Anyway, I had a question. Between the $3 and $100 and something IEMs, how big of a difference is there? Do they sound any better being $115? Or are you just paying for the design? Are you just paying for the brand name? Or are you paying for not having a cable that sucks or not having ear tips that completely suck? So what's the difference? So I have a bunch of them, and then I found out the difference. Talk about it later. You gotta watch the video. Starting with the ARRTI R6s. These are pretty good for $3. Yes, 3. I paid $3 for these. I could have bought 2 cheeseburgers and had less money after this. I picked the R6s up with my little portable SSD because they were $3 and I saw them at checkout and I'm just like, yeah, Amazon, you got me. Put them in my cart. They're $3 if they suck. I paid $3. I don't really care. I think they're like a whole $7 normally. If you're really strapped for cash, these are actually not a bad option, which is surprising for the price. They're actually pretty standard in terms of fit and sound and cable. The cable is actually pretty average. The sound is the most normal V-shape in-ear. Any KZ IEM or KB, or these are going to be sounding almost exactly the same. They might even be made in the same factory because the ARRTI series have the same exact shape as the Linsol, KZ, KB, or whatevers. This isn't a bad thing because they're pretty comfortable. I mean, they have that concave shaped shell that's supposed to fit in the inside of your ear. The tube extends pretty deep. It's not too big. They're pretty comfortable, and the only real gripe I have is that they use the 2-pin connector, but the female end of the 2 pins are sticking out a little, so it has this little, so the cable has a little bit of shielding around the pins, and it makes it really annoying because you can't really use them with anything else other than IEMs that have the similar pin accepting receptacle. But for $3, they're pretty okay. Although if you get these, I don't know if it's even worth getting a secondhand cable or secondhand tips, because at that point you could have just saved, you could have spent the same amount of money and gotten a slightly higher end in-ear, but at the same time they don't sound bad at all. So yeah, $3, that's all you need, and everything else is completely useless and you're wasting your money. I'm kind of kidding. Now there is a cable issue that I did have, but I'll talk about it later when I get to another set of in-ears, because they had the same problem. At first I thought it was the in-ears, but it turns out it's just the cable and it's just the microphone cables. But so next we have the QKZ ODIN, which sound really cool, and they're actually pretty cool because they're made of all aluminum and they were $7 whole. I tossed them in because I saw them on sale and I just figured, oh, they're $11. I'm saving $4. Bought them for $7. How bad can they be? I thought that they just had a aluminum top plate and they had the plastic side. And when I pulled them out of the box, I thought, wow, these are really heavy for plastic. Well, it turns out they aren't fucking plastic. They're aluminum. Now, these are one of the weird ones because they don't sound good almost at all. If you're looking for an IEM with an IEM sound, these are literally the opposite. Because for some reason they have 3 dip switches on the top, so you can adjust between 3 EQ profiles. Well, that is a really cool thing in theory. In practice, only one of them is okay. That is number 3. EQ mode 3 makes it go from having no bass and no treble to having just no bass to having a little bit more bass, a little bit of treble, and a good amount of mids, making it feel kind of referencey, like a reference set of headphones, which was really weird. But I don't hate it because I like listening to music, and these were pretty fun to listen to music out of. And that was about it because I could only stand them for a couple songs before I had to rip them out of my ears. The cable was complete e-waste, and I didn't even bother trying to unfold it and get it unstuck because it was maybe about 6 inches long unfolded because of how cramped up it was, because it sat in that box for probably months. The tips were also completely garbage. I actually could not use them. I had to wait for the ARRTI tips to come in so I can use them on this. I'm actually just using a cheap Linsol replacement cable in like that just rainbowed metal kind of thing. I like how they look. Subjectively, these are really cool because they're almost flat. Objectively, they suck in terms of IEM sound. If you want an IEM sounding like an IEM, don't buy these. These kind of sound like reference headphones. If you want a cheap all metal one, you can go ahead and get these, but they are not that comfortable because there's very little shaping to them, and how short the tube is, they almost hang out of your ear, and the ear loops almost do nothing because it just wants to fall straight out of your ear on the side. So yeah, there's that part. You get really heavy, nice premium, almost premium feeling IEMs at $11, but they're a not recommend unless you really want something like this, or you just want them to sit on a shelf and look cool. Next, so we have the next ARRTI in-ear monitor, the ARRTI R3s. They were a little bit more expensive at $11, which the only thing you get at $11 is a slightly nicer cable that is gray instead of the generic e-waste white color. It is thinner, which isn't a bad thing, but the ear loops kind of came in messed up on mine, though. That might be I got messed up ear loops because they sat in a box for 10 years, but I digress. The ear tips on these were actually really good. I like these ear tips. I actually stole all of them, and now they're sitting on almost all the IEMs besides the Truthear Zeros because they're supposed to have foam. The cable's okay, and they're comfortable enough. They, like the R6s, use the same Linsol KZ ear mold, whatever the hell they are, and there's just not much to say other than they're pretty comfortable. There's nothing special about these. They have a little aluminum cap on the housing to make it look a little bit more premium, I would say, is the goal there. Sound-wise, they're a little bit more of a laid-back V-shape. They're a very mild shape. They have a little bit of extra bass and a little bit of extra treble, but nothing too crazy. They're actually pretty easy on the ears. Sound-wise, they don't fatigue you for long gaming sessions. I actually used these for like 6 hours on end while I was playing Tarkov, and I didn't mind them at the end of it, although they weren't as comfortable as some other IEMs I have, and that's just because I have big fat ears, and this regular cookie cutter IEM shape is not always the greatest for me. But they have both a pro and a con of being extremely light. If I drop these, they feel cheap because of how light they are. There's no weight, no substance to them. And like the R6s, they are completely clear, and they are not hiding the fact that there is like nothing inside of these things, which is probably why it weighs so little. Over the R6s, you could get these. I think these are a little less harsh. There's one thing to note about both ARRTI IEMs that I noticed is that they seem to distort earlier than most IEMs. I felt like when the treble was a little bit cluttered and had a lot of stuff going on, it kind of started to distort. That could have also been the music because I listened to a lot of music over a pretty short period of time, so a lot of fine details are a little lost on me because I've been doing nothing but listening to IEMs for a few days just to get myself acquainted with all of them. But if you have $11 and you can swing the $7 price increase from the R6s, I might actually get these over the other ones because the cable is just a little bit better. Next we have the Moondrop Quark 2s, which are very, very average. They're small. They're very small. They don't have any shape to them other than that they are literally just a cylinder that you jam in your ear. The tubes are big, or I would not say big. The tubes are regular sized, but the actual tube that carries the sound is actually smaller. It's like a clear sleeve is fit over it. The drivers themselves are even smaller. Singular dynamic driver is smaller, but when you get a good set of ear tips on them and they seal in your ear, they're actually pretty nice and stealthy if you are into that thing. They're also sounding pretty good. They have a bass shelf that extends into the upper range of the bass and gives everything a little bit more punch. I really like some metal music with the big fat snares because it really sounded like you're getting hit in the head with a snare drum. I didn't mind it at all. Although these are definitely made for traveling because they terminate in a USB-C. So when your AirPods or insert something Bluetooth dies permanently or just for the trip, you have something to fall back on if you have a USB-C phone, which I think pretty much everything is a USB-C phone nowadays. These are made so you don't have to have an adapter. They are the adapter. For 20 bucks, they're all right. Although Moondrop are stretching it close because the cable is very cheap and feels like a ribbon. And if you yank on it at all or get caught in a door or just gets caught on something, it's not going to rip them out of your ears. It's just going to break the fucking cable. Because they're just tubes, they're just straight cylinders, there's nothing supporting on the inside of your ear. So I did actually have these try to get ripped out of my ear just by the gravity and the weight of the cable, because somehow this cable that feels incredibly cheap is freaking heavy compared to these things. So, which could be worse. These are actually okay sounding. I would actually go as far as to say that these sound really good, and that if they were not made so cheaply, I would actually recommend them completely for the $20 range. But no, because they're so small, they're comfortable, and because they terminate in USB-C, you don't need an adapter. They sound good, and that's about all it has going for it. But if you just want something to toss in your travel bag or just to have in case your earbuds die, these are not a bad option. They actually sound pretty good. Close enough. So next, I have a very interesting one for a couple of reasons. A big reason is the sound, but for $20, you could buy yourself their Sansi Miori, I will not call them that, the Sonic Memory SM1 Lites. Now, I really like these because of how small they are. The actual housing is pretty small, and the tube is not incredibly long, so it fits pretty snugly in your ear entirely, but because it's so small, it doesn't put any strain in your ear, and the ear loops are pretty good at supporting it. Fitting wise, they sit pretty low on my ear canal. They actually press towards the bottom. It feels like that, but I don't mind it, but that's something you might have to watch for. But since they're so small, you could fit them under headphones pretty easily. I did not mind that. These are probably going to be my replacement for LAN in-ear monitors because they could just fit under headphones, no problem. The cable is actually one of the better ones. It is simple plastic with the little bit of an extra plastic around the ear loops, but it doesn't feel like a cheap plastic. It actually feels like it stretches a little, it flexes. It doesn't retain the memory of the wrapping, the way it was wrapped too bad, so out of the box they're okay. But a big selling point is the aesthetics and the size of them because they're made for gaming, not music. These are a gaming focused IEM, and the sound definitely shows that. As for music, these things are fucking terrible. I did not like listening to music on them. They don't have a whole lot of treble, and it sounds really dark, but it's not like they just have extra bass. It's like they don't have a lot of nice, good sound to them, but then you put them in and play games, and these are actually really fun. I really like them for gaming because of just, I don't know, the way they're tuned, the sound, I don't know. They have like no treble. I didn't need a graph to say that or hear that, but for some reason they sound perfectly fine in video games. I don't know. The big selling point is that they're gaming. You can put gaming on them and say you're a gamer because you have gaming IEMs or whatever. I don't know. They're $20, and if you like the way they look, I would say buy them, especially if you're buying a gaming IEM. But if you want an IEM that also plays music and sounds good doing it, I think you should either get a separate pair, maybe the R3s or the R6s because they're so cheap, or you can not get these at all and save your money. Next, I actually have one of my top picks for the mid $20-ish range. That's $30. I think these are $28 not on sale. I actually got them for $19 on sale. These are the CCZ DC02s. On Amazon, they say Kinboofy, and plus a bunch of other things. Solo, Hi-Fi, DC02, blah, 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 a million different things. But these are actually one of the most comfortable in-ear monitors I own, and I like them a lot not because of their sound or the ear tips or the cable or just the way they look, although they do look nice. They're very simple and clean. It's because they're freaking comfortable as hell. Because of the shape of the housing, they are a lot more comfortable, and it's really simple. They have a very similar shape to the KZ IEMs and both of the ARRTIs that I showed earlier, but they have this little black ridge at the top that's made of some grippier rubber texture. And what it does is that it sits on the upper ridge of your ear and gives it some more support, and these are absolutely comfortable. There's some company that spent a lot of time and money and ear scans and did all this money, and they poured all this money into their research to make really comfortable IEMs, and then the Chinese manufacturers got a hold of that shape in some way, shape, or form, and now they just kind of rip it off. But that's okay for me because I'm not paying however much it was for the original shape. But these are very comfortable to the point where I'd say if you're a streamer and you're going to be playing games 8, 10, 12 hours a day, these are a really good pick because of how comfortable they are. I had them in for a pretty good gaming session, and I actually had zero issues with these. Sound-wise, they are the most standard IEM sound out of the bunch, in my opinion, but they still sound good. I don't think most IEMs aren't going to sound bad. Most of them are going to have extra bass and a little bit extra treble. If you want a specific sounding IEM, I would actually go up in price, but for $28, these are actually a really good pick. Cable. The cable did not suck. It's very simple, black. The connector is a little goofy because the 3.5 is so close to the right angle that certain things make it difficult to plug into, but that's honestly not a deal breaker. These are also just like the regular old 2-pin connectors. The female end of the 2-pin does protrude out a little bit, and the cable is designed for that, but you could use a regular 2-pin, no problem on these. While they were trying to unfold, I did have to use another cable because of how bad they were folded, so that might be something to note when you buy them. But in terms of looks, pretty okay. In terms of sound, pretty okay. In terms of comfort, these are the most comfortable out of the bunch. Next up is my personal favorite and is actively plugged into my computer. These are the Truthear Zero Blue 2s. These are the second ones. These are very pretty, and my favorite aesthetically. They have the best sound out of all of them, easily. And it's nothing crazy. It does a lot of little things right. Like, I don't feel like these distort. I've had these pretty loud. I don't think I've even experienced any distortion with these. I am also really enjoying the extra bass these have, because even though they're IEMs and they already come with a little extra bass, this is not like the extra bass that they just turned up the bass knob. They turned the bass on more. This goes down to like 2 hertz, if I recall. That sub bass that you feel more than you hear. And it is very prominent, especially when you get into some games with some explosions and stuff like that. The bass is ridiculous on these. These are absolutely my favorite, and I could not get them out of my ears. Am I biased because I like the way they look and I like the way they sound the most? A little bit, but this is my video, so actual comfort wise, they're pretty comfortable. They deviate a little bit from the standard KZ IEM shape. They still are a very similar shape, but they're much more rounded and smooth. And even though they are heavy, the cable actually helps it a lot. I haven't had an issue with these comfort wise. And another factor is that they're designed with foam ear tips. They even come with 4 sets of in-memory foam ear tips for you to shove in your ears. And they were tuned with memory foam in mind. So these actually, out of the box, sound the best and have the most things with them. Yours, when you buy them new, will come with a bass booster adapter. It's just a little dongle that plugs onto the end of your regular 3.5. And it uses a capacitor, I believe. Don't quote me on that, to boost the bass just a little bit, and it gives it even more extra bass. So if you really like bass, these are absolutely the way to go. If you're in the market for a good looking IEM, then these are also your guy. They are $65, the Truthear Blue 02. Next we have the Sonic Memory SW500H. They have the most high-end sounding name, but they are pretty okay. They're $73 if I'm not mistaken, $75. They are good. I wouldn't think these are bad in any way. They have a very traditional tuning and driver setup, compared to the ARRTIs or the SM1. The SW500s have a dynamic driver and 4 balanced armature drivers in them. They do sound really good. I do think the top end is probably the best on these out of all of them because they have 4 balanced armatures on top of having a dynamic driver, but they sound generally good. There's not much to say. It's kind of hard to complain about these because for $73 you get a pretty good IEM, a pretty good cable, and the tips were still actually terrible. Sonic Memory had the worst ear tips out of all of them. Interestingly, the tubes are wooden, which I don't know if it's a deal breaker or something interesting to look out for, or if it just makes it break more. That might add to the manufacturing costs, so these could have been a lot cheaper if they just used plastic or even a steel aluminum tube on the end of the drivers. The cable's actually pretty good. I like it in terms of aesthetics. It's black with some gray, or it's gray. It's gray with some black accents, and it has a microphone, which brings me to the issue I mentioned earlier. I thought these in-ears came dead on arrival. If you've ever looked at earbuds without a mic and earbuds with a mic, you notice the connectors have 3 sleeves on the microphone version versus 2 on the just regular no microphone versions. And that does have an effect on my interface. Apparently, it does not like having the 3 sleeves to deal with. And the only way to actually listen to music, if you don't use an adapter and a different port, is to hold down the microphone button the whole time, or it just sounds like someone took away your bass and your treble. You might need to get an adapter if you get the microphone version, if they don't sell a microphone version. Comfort-wise, I do think these are actually one of the more comfortable ones because they're just a hair smaller than the other IEMs, and they're dense, but they don't sit too far out on your ears, and the ear loops are actually really good on these. I had no issues wearing these for a pretty good amount of time. It's kind of hard to recommend the SW500s over the Truthear Blue 2s, or 02s, Blue, Crinicale, the Crinicale buds, because you get more in the box with these. I think the packaging is better, the ear tips are better, and the cables are, I think the cables are comparable, but it's kind of hard because these are $10 cheaper, and I think they sound better because of the sub bass that they had. But if you don't care about that and you just like the look of these, because you could get them in red and blue as well, then go with these, I guess. Just get new tips because the tips absolutely blow. So last but not least, at 115 United States dollars, we have the PADSMITH in-ear monitors. The PADSMITH in-ears are really good. I like them a lot. There's only a couple things that I would have to say other than they're really good. To start, I bought mine secondhand for a little bit less, but I only got the in-ears and nothing else. I didn't get the case or the cable. It does come with a nice case from what I know, and I know the cable normally is pretty good, but I'm using aftermarket cable. This is just another of the purple Linsol triple win, which this is a good cable on its own. I do think that if you need an upgrade, the $20, $17, whatever it is, Linsol cable is good. I've been using them for the past week or so, just on their own, just to see how they do get in every different game and how they do in stuff like music and mixing and mastering. And in general, I really like these. These are probably my favorite overall. So now why would they be my favorite? No, it's not because they're just most expensive. Yes, for the price, they do, in my opinion, sound really good. They are very, very competitive with the Truthear Blue 2s, the Zeros. Not that the Zeros are worse, it's just I think they're more different. The Zero has the bass range that these don't exactly have, but these still do have bass. They do have a very nice sounding bass. They have very great top end. And they have a nice mid range. And in games, I like these almost the best. I still think I really do like the SM1s for gaming, but these are also very comfortable because of their small size. And like the DC02s, they have the ridge on the top that hits on the top of your ear and it kind of just spreads out the weight evenly. Paired with a good cable, these are effortless to wear, and I've been wearing these for hours and hours every day. I like how they sound, to be honest. The PADSMITH does have a really nice treble range, It does not have the greatest extension, but for the peaks and the things that it accentuates, I think it really rounds it off into being not only a beautiful in-ear monitor, with the silver pyramid on the like mist swirling purple, it just looks really damn good. What this does is that it sounds really good while not being fatiguing. I think it is not harsh in any way. I do think it is very clear. I would like to say these are very consistent in the sound and the feel. If you get good tips on these and once they get a good seal, you're smooth sailing from there. It's hard to say anything bad about these because for $115, you get a good IEM that looks really, really nice. It's comfortable. It sounds good. You can use it for a long period of time. They're targeted towards gamers, but they're also good in music. They sound good. Between these and the $3 ARRTI R6s, yes, I am going to pick these. But if you handed me the ARRTI R6s and said that's the only IEM I'll ever use again, I still wouldn't be that mad. They're pretty good. So the question at the beginning was, what is the difference between a $3 and $115 IEM? So overall, as I've gone through each price range, there's been a few things that I've noted. One is that it does not change a whole lot. Yes, you do get some more things. As you get higher in price, this quality does not necessarily scale linearly. You could definitely buy really nice in-ear monitors, and they would be the best things ever. If you're only in it for the sound, then you should just save your money and buy whichever one you think looks the best to you. Sound-wise, some of them did get better, some of them did get worse. Certain ones sounded a lot better than others, in my opinion. As we get higher, the sound quality doesn't necessarily drastically increase. I don't necessarily think the PADSMITHs sound $112 better. The PADSMITHs have a more clear and consistent sound. I feel like anything I plug these into, I know how these are going to sound, I know how they're going to react. So yeah, that does it for this video. This is my first video, so I would appreciate any comments about what I could do better and maybe what I should stop doing and maybe what I did good. That's the name of the fuck, dude. I can't do outro.